Hi everyone, thanks for joining me for today's video. Today's video is the 7th video in an installment of 9 videos I'm doing that's going over and covering all diagnostic criteria for borderline personality disorder, known today as emotionally unstable personality disorder. So, before I get into that, a disorder would be problems causing negative effects in your life. When it becomes a disorder, and when you have a personality disorder, it becomes a very pervasive pattern of these traits. And the person may seem rigid, not change, not flex, not bend, just break, or stay exactly the same, not knowing it's them. So this actual disorder has a very specific diagnostic criteria. Today we use what's called, boom, the DSM-V, the American Psychiatric Associations of Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, 5th edition. And you need 5 out of 9. So in this book, it gives you 9 diagnostic traits. You only need 5 out of the 9 to have the disorder. But it has to be a pervasive pattern, don't forget. So BPD, just call it, a mental health condition characterized by pervasive patterns of instability in mood, self-image, and relationships. It can be a very impulsive person. Borderlines tend to have a reduced life expectancy of some 20 years. 20 years less than average. Attributed largely to physical health maladies and notably cardiovascular due to stress, guys. This is about stress. I believe this disorder starts soon after birth. Stress is the leading cause of death. And this disorder has a 40% chance of comorbidity with narcissistic personality disorder. People who are diagnosed with borderline personality disorder have a 40% chance to also be diagnosed or also have narcissistic personality disorder. So this is the number 8. I've made 7 already. I would suggest to go in order. There's kind of an order it does go in. I think it's significant to understand one. You kind of need to understand the one before it seems like. To understand this one, it would really help you to watch and understand the 6th diagnostic trait, which is affective instability. So this is number 8, which is inappropriate, intense anger, or difficulty controlling anger. These emotions, moods, affect can fluctuate quickly. They have difficulty regulating their emotions. So what does inappropriate anger mean? What does it mean? Number 8, this is referring to emotion right now. This actual diagnostic trait refers to emotion. So inappropriate anger would refer to the emotion someone has that's inappropriate to what happened, to the event, to the environment, as a reaction. So inappropriate means response doesn't match. Response doesn't match. Maybe I'll come up with some examples in a minute. But this is also clues that you are not emotionally connected to your partner. When they get so angry at what you say, what you do, even just misunderstandings, stuff like this. So people with this disorder commonly have cognitive dysfunctioning here in the front part of their brain. They take in the information, they sort it out, they come up with a response. Sometimes that is not functioning properly. They could have a distorted or skewed perception of reality. A distorted view of you and a skewed perception of the reality of what you're saying or what you're doing. In 1 second, they can easily feel slighted. In the second, they could split and go from you're great to you're horrible. And number 3, their temper rises that fast, anger. And number 4, all of a sudden, they're violins. Can't say the word. And they're having a temper tantrum. And all you did was ask them what they did today. How was your day? And they're just upset because you should have asked earlier. Or how could you ask that? I told you I had a bad day there. I told you I was afraid of what was happening this morning. And how could you do that? And, emotions are intense. Emotions are our body doing things. Think of like a perspiration on my upper lip, butterflies in my stomach, a lump in my throat, sweaty palms. These are emotions. And for them, they're all very, very intense, and they can't regulate them and express them and process them properly. They think emotionally over logic. Most of us think logically here and emotions in the peripheral. But if your emotions, what your body's doing is so intense, it can cloud logic, can't it, guys? When you guys get so mad, you do something maybe sometime in your life that was stupid, or you said something wrong and you had to apologize for. Their emotions can become reality, where although our emotions are real, really happening, they're not necessarily the reality of a situation. You can't just accuse somebody of doing something, just based on how you emotionally react to it. That would be more like an opinion, wouldn't it be? I mean, if someone came up to, you and me, and what they said, made you laugh, but insulted me, are they insulting or are they funny? Maybe neither. You see that? Outbursts and accusations, violence, this can become a release. For someone who doesn't regulate their emotions, doesn't process them, doesn't express them in healthy ways, they may exploit you emotionally by using you as these kind of outbursts, if you're in the room and I just can't believe it, I just yell at you, and yell at you, and yell at you until I feel better, and you just don't really say much, and then I leave the room. I'm using you. I'm exploiting you emotionally, and it's really, I think, it can be invaluable to identify how people like this are emotionally exploiting you. If someone's exploiting you, it's good to know how. Financially is easy to understand. They made me pay for everything. They stole my money. They signed my name and didn't honor obligations and borrowed money from me and didn't pay me back. And that's easy, isn't it? And sexual exploitation, right? I just use you. I even blackmail you to have sex with you. But the emotional is difficult. It'd be really hard to identify how someone exploits you emotionally, but that's a good way. With anger. You sit around and take my anger, my outbursts, my temper tantrums. You see, some borderlines aren't violins, right? Some borderlines aren't physically abusive, right? And it comes down to neglect, because all borderlines are neglected, emotionally neglected. And when you have a borderline who's neglected in childhood, or I should just say a child who's neglected, it's very common, very typical for these children to grow up and have temper tantrums because they're neglected, right? Why? Well, children get frustrated, don't they? And they have, go through stages, they're terrible twos, and then they start having temper tantrums. It's very common for children to have temper tantrums, to not be in control of their temper. And the parents need to check that. They need to stop it. You need to stop it by about 4 or 5. If not, it's going to be way more difficult. And if you don't stop it by about 7, 8 years old, it can tend to last forever. And that adult will tend to have temper tantrums. Borderlines tend to still have temper tantrums and lose their shit. It's one thing to be anger. Anger is an emotion, and anger is not wrong. Anger is healthy. It's a healthy stage of grieving. Emotions aren't wrong. Some don't feel good, for sure. But how we express them can be considered or have an opinionated of what's wrong or right or healthy or not healthy. My mom told me to go beat up my pillow if I was really angry. And that way no one else sees it, because you don't want to express anger in a way that's violins around other people. That's wrong. That's unhealthy. I don't want it in my life. Everybody in my life knows I don't want violins in my life. You can't yell, you can't scream, you can't bang things, you can't throw things, you can't break things, you can't hit me, you can't threaten me with anything at all. It's very common for borderlines to lose their shit, be physically violent, and they break property. I've seen borderlines destroy property like no other. I knew of a man that destroyed an entire interior of a home on a temper tantrum. Unbelievable. A borderline can be like a sociopath and resolve things by violence. Yeah, I knew a diagnosed male borderline who resolved everything. You have a problem? It's fight. Everything is fight, fight, fight. Everything fight. You want to fight? You want to fight? You want to fight? You want to fight? Oh, let's fight. You want to fight? I'm going to fight you. Just second, all day long. Just want to fight. You know, these are high conflict people, high conflict personality type people. You have a male borderline, can't control their anger, just always having temper tantrums, resolves everything with violence. They'll look like the most, you know, worst sociopath you've ever seen. They belong in jail, probably. So it's not even just expressing anger, like I said, which is not bad. It's mismatched. It's dramatic. It's misunderstood. They misunderstood you. They're what you're saying and what you're doing is uncomfortable to them, and it's just anger. They feel easily threatened. Just ask a question about someone they love or some past trauma, past events, something they did wrong. Anger is a powerful emotion. Anger gets things done, doesn't it? Anger starts wars, huh? A borderline may not care about you, how you feel. They may not have much empathy, maybe. I'm just saying a borderline that doesn't have much empathy. And they aren't too concerned with how you feel, how they make you feel, that type of borderline. But they'll really care about if you're angry, if you ever notice that. Are you angry? Are you mad at me? No? Okay. They don't care they ruined your life. They don't care that they destroyed something of yours, that they ruined and put a dent in your car, that they just made you lose your friend or, you know, whatever, made you lose your job. Are you mad at me? No, you're not? Okay. That's all that matters. You're not going to break up with me. An angry borderline very commonly verbally abuses. That's where they really start verbally abusing you. And like I said before, they're known for destroying property. They could become physically abusive. They could start self-harming and self-sabotage. They're so angry. Screw it! And ruin all their own stuff and break their own things, have a temper tantrum and put dents in their own cars and stuff. It's insane. So back to what it is. Number 8. It's inappropriate, intense anger, and difficulty controlling anger. So it's their emotion. Emotion is in my body. Maybe it's right here in my chest, right here. And it's so intense, and I react so angry to something that you did that wasn't a big deal. I could easily just misunderstand. I told you not to say that again. Never bring that up again. I told you not to talk about that. God, why do you still believe that? We already resolved that. Remember that time that you really hurt me and you did that and you said this and you did that? Yes, you did. You remember, you know. I mean, it can just happen. And it starts from baseline. It starts from just whatever their baseline is to just boom, anger. Boom, anger. And it's not, I'm not even talking about, this isn't even talking about how they express it. It's just they have difficulty controlling anger, which would assume or imply that they might become verbally abusive, verbally or physically abusive, destroying property. Threats. Threats is huge. Threats are a form of violence. Never allow threats in your life. Never allow someone to threaten anything to you, that they're going to take their own life, that they're going to end it and break up with you and go with somebody else. These are all threats. They're all violence. Don't allow them into your life. Tell your people, tell your partners when you start dating them, never do it or it's over. If you ever do that, ever. If you ever end the relationship, it's over. If you ever threaten me with anything, it's over. If you ever tell me you're going to end your life, it's over. You ever find yourself in a relationship like this that I've described? Step outside of it, ask for help, and tell someone. If you have these problems, any of these problems I've been describing in my videos, get help. Get help. There is help for this, for everyone that has this uncontrollable, intense anger that's inappropriate. There's help for you. You can go to talk therapy and just talk to a therapist. It's called dialectical behavioral therapy. There's help. But anybody has a relationship like this, step outside and tell someone and ask for help, please. And anybody who has their own experiences, can you please, if you feel comfortable sharing them down below for other people to see them? It really helps. It really does. It's really great. And thank you. Please subscribe to the channel. Thumbs up, and if you want coaching, you can find me at daviddemars.com. Love yourself first, guys. Please ask questions. I'll answer them. Thank you. Bye-bye.